Just an old gray dog, nobody. What was that? Oh, I'm sorry. Just an old gray dog nobody sees. Can't run too fast, not so easy to please. Just an old gray dog nobody sees. Can't run too fast, not so easy to please. Just lays around like a bump on a log, but I love that old gray dog. I love that old gray dog. When they get home from work each day, he trots out to greet them, they just turn away. Walk in the house while he waits behind, wagging his tail like he don't mind. Guess they don't know what a true friend he was, and they will never know if it hurts. Just an old gray dog nobody sees. Can't run too fast, not so easy to please. Just lays around like a bump on a log, but I love that old gray dog. I love that old gray dog. Maybe it's because one day all us humans will get old and gray. Then we'll understand that you need a gentle hand to reach out and say it's okay. Like an old gray dog nobody sees, time has brought him down to his knees, but he don't give in and he don't give up, and I love that old gray dog. I love that old gray dog.
Thank you, Mark. I am sorry about the interruptions. I forgot to turn on record.
Okay.
But so now we
All right.
are recording. Thank you. Thank you. That was beautiful. All right, I'm going to do the intro all over again because I forgot to push record. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Silver City. My name is Shelley Chase. I am super happy to be moderating the service today. And a big welcome to our friends from the UU Church of Las Cruces. We are so happy to be sharing this time with you. And that music was Old Gray Dog by Jim Scott, performed by Mark Secontorak.
Would you
Mark,
like me to do it again? No, doesn't
which,
matter. Either way.
Mark is a longtime member of the UU Church of Las Cruces congregation who loves to perform at their services. He plays acoustic guitar, whistles, and sings heartfelt songs in a baritone voice, sometimes in harmony with good friends. And occasionally he messes around with the flute or the banjo. And he will be playing for us again at the end of the program, so be sure to stay on for that. Let me start off with some Zoom instructions on your computer. If you're on your phone, I can't help you, but if you're on your computer, in the upper right corner, there's a toggle switch between speaker view and gallery view. When you move your mouse up there, you'll see it. So you can see everyone, or you can see just who's speaking. When you move your mouse to the bottom of the screen, you'll see a participants button. Click that and you will have access to your raise hand button for when we have joys and concerns and Q&A. And click the chat button if you would like to message everyone or anyone in the meeting. Let's see what else. Oh, at the bottom left of your screen, you'll have your mute and unmute button, and you will also have your turn on and off your video button. Please try to keep yourself muted until it's time to talk, and after you talk, if you can, remember to mute again. That'll make my job easier. Thank you very much. Let's start with the chalice lighting. A person can learn a lot from a dog, even a loopy one like ours. Marley taught me about living each day with unbridled exuberance and joy, about seizing the moment and following your heart. He taught me to appreciate simple things, a walk in the woods, a fresh snowfall, a nap in a shaft of winter sunlight. As he grew old and achy, he taught me about optimism in the face of adversity. Mostly, he taught me about friendship and selflessness, and above all, unwavering loyalty. And that is from John Grogan's Marley and Me, Life and Love with the World's Worst Dog. All right, and now let's do joys and concerns. And we share these together because joys shared are magnified and concerns shared are diminished. You can either use your raise hand button, which you'll see over in the participants area of your screen, or you can kind of do this and wave around until I see you. Alternatively, if you're shy, you can also type something in to the chat. And I'll start with a couple that our guest speaker has sent me today. One joy that Dave and Ginny Rice are celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary today. So I'll drop a stone for that. And Kay Wickle continues experiencing health issues that require more tests and evaluations. And she and Dennis are summering in Wisconsin, and their return to Las Cruces depends on Kay's condition later this year. So send some prayers out to them. And now I can open it up to everyone else. Aubrey.
I'd like to drop a stone for my friend Bill Yett. He's in the hospital, 80 years old, and he and his wife Pat have been like foster parents to me almost, after. So he has cancer between his stomach and small intestine. They removed some of it, but didn't get it all, and doesn't look good. But so yeah, I'm concerned. They are very dear to me. They've been friends of mine for 30 years.
Prayers. Thank you, Aubrey. Who else has a joy or a concern to share? You might need to speak up because there's so many people. Bob. Hey, Bob.
There we go. Okay. A joy. A week ago, last Friday, my daughter called me, and she said, "I'm getting married." So she's been single for about 20 years now, and she's marrying a fellow, and she'll be moving to Missouri from Springfield, Illinois. So that's kind of a neat thing. It kind of threw my summer all around because I plan to be in Southern California right now, visiting family and friends. But I'm going to be heading for St. Louis. So that's what's going on.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Sandy.
I was just going to tell Bob he needs to look up Rob Connolly's restaurant, Bull Rush, when he's in St. Louis.
Thank you, Sandy. In the chat, Karen B asked to drop a stone for her family because they are mourning the death of her Uncle Don. So there's a stone for that. Let's see. All right, I'm looking for any raised hands. Anybody else have anything to share today? A huge group and so few joys and concerns. All right, well, I'm going to drop a stone for the huge group. We're not used to such a huge group, and heartfelt welcome to everyone here. And then another stone for all the joys and concerns left unspoken today. And we'll just move on. All right, so before we get to the presentation, a few announcements. Our next UUFSC service will be Sunday, June 27th via Zoom at 10 a.m. Mountain. It'll feature Stacy Cox speaking about healing community. Safety, community, and connection matter more than anything when trying to build strong and resilient communities and should be our goal as we learn to take care of each other. Let's talk about how they are integral in individual and community healing. And then from Board Chair Carol Morrison, we are planning to begin programs in our UU building in July, hopefully starting with a July 4th picnic. However, all decisions will be made to keep us safe, so there may be unexpected changes. You are encouraged to pay close attention to our UU listserv messages for the next month or so as we make the transition. We will code these messages with announcement in all caps in the subject line. Our UU newsletter will reflect what we expect to be happening with listserv announcements highlighting any changes. Announcement number 3, after the program committee meets on June 20th, there will be details about the July 4th picnic sent out on the listserv and will also be announced on the June 27th Zoom service. And the Silver City Community Theater continues to produce old-timey radio plays for Kuru, our local radio station. Tune in on Sunday afternoons on the radio or online. You can find it both places. Sunday afternoons at 4 to hear the latest. And if you're interested in participating in creating those shows, please contact me. Susan Price says, sending caring thoughts and energy, gratefulness and praises to firefighters in the Gila Forest and throughout New Mexico and the West. I'll drop another stone for that. And now a little bit about our program today. What dogs taught me about love. This sermon asks us to pause for a moment as we consider what dogs and other pets can teach us about love. And Kalani XK Kachela, PhD, serves as the minister of the UU Church of Las Cruces. And before that, he served UU congregations in Dallas and Durham, North Carolina. He hosts the weekly radio program on KTAL LP 101.5 in Las Cruces called Take on Faith. It airs on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. He's a chaplain in the New Mexico Air National Guard, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Prior to that, he served with the District of Columbia National Guard at Joint Base Andrews and at U.S. Special Operations Command at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. He has deployed 4 times, including service during Operation Iraqi Freedom. XK is the author of The Black UU Survival Guide and 4 other books. He has earned his doctorate in pastoral theology and pastoral counseling from Texas Christian University and an undergraduate degree from Morehouse College. He lives with his wife Tamara in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and they enjoy fishing, hunting, and traveling together. Before we move into the program, let's actually meet his wife, Tamara, in a short video that she recorded for us yesterday.
This time last year, we were on lockdown, and look at us today. During the pandemic, the most amazing things happened. There were more pet adoptions. That was a great time to adopt an animal. You were at home, you could train them, they could get to know you, you could get to know them. A pet makes a family complete. Unfortunately, some of our members lost their friends last year due to us being closed. We may not have known about their losses. We would like to, at this time, send out into the universe comfort to them. We realize that they were your family and they were your friends. We wrap our arms around you today with all the love that we can give. Okay, we love our pets. We can come home from a hard day's work and discover that our friends have left things on the floor that we did not want on the floor. We get down there and we clean it up. We clean it up and we scrub. And then we look around for Rover and we look up under the beds, we look in the corners, and finally we find him with his big brown eyes looking sad. And we say, no, bad dog, no. But I love you so much. We even walk down the streets with bags in our hands, picking up after them. That's not love. I don't know what is. The greatest love is that we don't care whether or not they're brown or white or black or one eye or three legs. We just love them, and they in return love us. We especially don't care if we don't know what kind of dog it is. If it's a mixed breed dog, we don't care. Someone may ask you, well, what kind of dog is that, Tamara? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what kind of dog it is. But I just love him so much. He's the greatest companion. I was thinking that maybe we can learn something about this unconditional, unjudgmental love for our pets. Maybe we could love each other that same way. Thank you. I'm Tamara Katela. Ashe, and may it be so. Have a great Sunday.
That was so beautiful. Thank you, Tamara. And now a short reading before I call on the Reverend to take over. This is a passage from The Dogs Who Taught Me About Love by Jennifer Kinney Boylan. Each of these dogs had taught me something about the perilous nature of devotion. Some people will tell you that the magic of dogs is that their love for us is unconditional, but I've never found this to be the case. What's unconditional is the love that we have for them. At 60, I'm pretty sure that if there is any reason why we are here on this planet, it is in order to love one another. It is, as the saying goes, all you know on earth and all you need to know. And yet, as it turns out, nothing is harder than loving human beings. And that's where dogs come in. It's in our love for the dogs that we can express how hard it is to be human, how glorious, and how sad. Now, if you would, please welcome with me Reverend Kalani Katela.
Thank you, Shelley. I appreciate the warm welcome and invitation. And I want to thank everyone at Silver City for inviting me and the Las Cruces congregation to worship with you all. I also want to especially thank Ron, who I met a couple of years ago when we had our Silver City, Las Cruces and Otero County joint social justice meeting, who invited me to come speak then. And I think we've been trying to get together for the last almost 2 years now. And we had this service planned for last year, and then the pandemic came and we postponed, and then you all postponed starting Zoom worship. And now we're glad that you're back, and we've been back, and we're finally bringing our two congregations together. So thank you, Silver City and all your visitors and friends, and of course, the Las Cruces family. Love you, and thank you for being here today also. You know, we're talking about dogs. And I also want to mention before we get started that this week we celebrate Juneteenth. On June 19, 1865, Texas and other Confederate states finally recognized the 1863 Emancipation Proclamation, which freed enslaved people. And this week, throughout Unitarian Universalism and throughout the US, there will be celebrations for Juneteenth. And there's several that are going on in southern New Mexico, including one sponsored by the NAACP. And our good friend, Dr. Bobby Green, is leading that, as well as a Juneteenth Jazz Festival. So I just want to put that on your calendar and your radar that next Saturday, next weekend is Juneteenth, and we want to celebrate that big day with everyone. Well, today I'm thinking about the idea of what have I learned from dogs? And I've learned a lot. As you heard the reading from Shelley, who gave us an understanding of how Boylan looked at it. Well, here's some lyrics. Everybody, let me tell you about my love, brought to you from an angel from above, fully equipped with a lifetime guarantee. Once you try it, I am sure that you'll see. There's no reason to live without you. What would I do with the love I give? All my loving to you I'll be giving. And I promise, yes, I'll do, as long as I'm living. Well, those lyrics come from the song Thinking of You by the 80s R&B group Sister Sledge. Probably the song represents a woman singing to her partner. However, the lyrics fit, in my estimation, many human-pet relationships. For many, our dog is the one who receives the best of our love. The commentator and writer Andy Rooney once said on his 60 Minutes bit, we assign human traits to pets that do not fit the animals. For example, we think of our animals as loving us under any circumstances, which many call unconditional love. According to Andy Rooney, though, we compare animals to humans in unrealistic ways. Do animals have feelings like people? I don't know. I know researchers argue for and against dogs' emotional lives. I own a book on dog intelligence, which ranks dogs' IQ. It's a fascinating book, and it ranks border collies as #1. But I believe that when properly trained and disciplined, most dogs show high intelligence. Research shows cats too can be trained. We don't ask that of our cats, and therefore they behave differently than dogs. My college girlfriend's cat often would charge people and scratch them and then run away. Most cats abide calmly in our homes. Mama told me that our first pet was a cat, and she loved reminding my sister and me how much we love that cat, although to this day, I cannot remember the cat. Throughout my life, my dog companions have defined significant events. When I lived in Dallas, I belonged to an animal rescue society. And every 6 weeks, they gave me another dog to take home. And it was a great situation for me because I got to foster many species of dogs. Unlike most people who keep their animals for long periods or even for the lifetime of that animal, I became accustomed to satisfying short-term relationships with my pets. The only hitch was I couldn't get attached to them. The Rescue Society held a dog adoption at a grocery store every so often, and my dogs got adopted to permanent homes. I fostered a Dalmatian, a Great Dane, an Australian Shepherd, 2 Chihuahuas, a Beagle, a Jack Russell Terrier, and then an assortment of mutts. One time, I adopted a dog from the society and I chose a Chihuahua. But the first week I owned that dog, I had to leave town for a business meeting. During my absence, my neighbor was my dog sitter. And when we returned home, we discovered the backyard gate open and the dog gone. That was a sad moment. and it put me in a difficult position with my neighbor. But I cared about my neighbor more than the dog, and my relationship with my neighbor survived. I didn't adopt another dog. Well, in the piece, The Dogs Who Taught Me About Love, the author Jennifer Finney Boylan described several dogs she owned. The dogs' names were Playboy, Matt the Mutt, Lucy, Indigo, Sausage, and Brown. And each dog taught her a specific lesson about love, which I believe will resonate with you today. Here are the lessons that Jennifer Boylan learned during her years living with the dogs. Her dog, Playboy, taught her, and I quote, "It is perfectly fine if everyone hates you as long as you are deeply loved by one person," end quote. Playboy was a difficult dog to live with and frequently bit people. He chased other animals, and on one occasion chased a, she quoted, leather-jacketed Hell's Angel racing by on a Harley, end quote. Her father kept a special relationship with Playboy and never got upset with the dog's behavior. Her dog, Sausage, taught her, and I quote, "Sometimes love fades, and as you age, it can be hard to keep a promise you made when you were young," end quote. How often have you found your adult self chasing a childhood dream or promise? That lesson arose after Sausage developed a strange condition that caused her to lose her tail hair and her eyes to discharge this brown, gooey substance. She didn't say how she parted ways with Sausage, but eventually their relationship ended intentionally. Then there was Matt the Mutt, who taught her, and I quote, "Sometimes the happiest people are the ones that make everyone else's lives impossible," end quote. She described Matt as a terrible dog, although he lived with her family for 8 years. During those years, she said he took liberty of raising his leg wherever he wanted, barked incessantly, and knocked people over at will. Only Boylan's grandmother could bear Matt the Mutt's madness. From her dog, Brown, Boylan learned sometimes people who seem the most normal turn out to be the craziest. Brown developed a habit of pushing a kitchen chair to the sink with her snout and opening the tap with her teeth. Then she'd bite at the running water. Brown developed a bad habit of chewing on her feet and required one of those cones that vets give pet owners to prevent the dog from chewing her feet off. When Boylan's father died, Brown consoled her by laying her head in Boylan's lap. I love the words that Boylan wrote to describe that time. She wrote, "Do not be dismayed, for I am thy dog. Whoever lives in love lives in dog, and dog in them." And in each case, she capitalized the word dog. Those words, of course, are a paraphrase of the scripture from Isaiah 41:10. And the original words read similarly. They say, "Do not be dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee." Her dog, Lucy, taught her, and I quote, "Sometimes all people want is a thing they had when they were young." Lucy liked biting flies right out of the air, and Boylan called those flies sky raisins. Lucy was another dog that got annoyed by everything the family did. And Boylan believed that Lucy longed for her first home, which was their neighbor's pigsty. The most crucial lesson is one that Shelley read for us. And Boylan writes these words: "Some people will tell you that the magic of dogs is that their love for us is unconditional, but I've never found this to be the case. What's unconditional is the love that we have for them." Boylan continues, and she says, "At 60, I'm pretty sure that if there is any reason why we are here on this planet, it is in order to love one another. It is, as the saying goes, all ye know on earth and all ye need to know." And some of you will realize or recall those words came from my jazz sermon, or I used them in my jazz sermon a few weeks ago. She continues, "And yet, as it turns out, nothing is harder than loving human beings. That's where dogs come in. It's in our love for dogs that we can most express how hard it is to be human, how glorious and how sad." What a beautiful description that is of our human-dog relationship. I owned my last dog about 10 years ago in 2011. She was a Jack Russell Terrier that strayed into my yard several days in a row and couldn't find her way back home. I already owned a friendly and curious Chihuahua named Taco. When the other dog arrived, I named her Belle. So Taco and Belle lived happily together until Taco started hoarding every meal. He wouldn't let Belle eat a single morsel. As a result, Taco began gaining weight. So to save him from himself and from me from agony of seeing him getting bigger and bigger, I gave Taco to a close friend. Belle stayed with me for a while longer. She started barking incessantly through the night, as Boylan's dog did. And I tried everything to stop her, from putting her in the garage at night to bringing her inside. And I finally resolved she was not going to stop barking. But the animal god smiled upon us, and a good friend of mine loved Belle and eagerly adopted her and took her home. My story, I believe, highlights my limits for pet behavior, and for me, how love for pets is conditional. Jennifer Finney Boylan's lessons resonated deeply with me, and I hope they resonate with you. I still love dogs and other animals, but only when someone else owns them. Amen and Ashe.
Well, thank you very much for that. That was lovely. Now I would like to ask the audience for questions and comments. Please feel free to make yourself known or just unmute and start talking, because it's really hard to see. I've got 3 pages of people to look at. Does anyone have questions or comments? Carol. You're muted, Carol.
I appreciate your honesty, and I understand where you're coming from. I don't think I've ever been able to give away an animal that I've had, no matter how dreadful they were, or no matter how inappropriate or whatever. It's a weakness, and I can't even walk a dog at the Humane Society, or I'd have 100 dogs in my backyard. So I appreciate the way that you've adjusted to your own life, but for a lot of us, it's a very different, I think, feeling, and I appreciated that. I've had the world's worst cat for 17 years, and I still miss her.
Yeah, I want to say something to that, Carol. My wife and I Did you have a question or you finished?
Yes, done. Yeah.
Okay. We have so we got here in 2018, and before the pandemic, sometime I guess in 2019, we were out on Dripping Springs Road here in Las Cruces, out there towards the mountains and so forth. And we were out just driving along, I believe, and we saw this pit bull over to our right out in the field, and someone had abused the dog and taken him out there into the desert and abandoned him. And the dog was limping around, and you could tell he had been scarred in his face. And we just couldn't leave the dog there. So I coaxed the dog to come closer to me. It was a very sweet dog. I think it was a girl, female. And it seemed like a dog that someone had tried to train, but maybe couldn't train, or decided that for some reason they were just going to abandon her. So we ended up calling the Animal Rescue Society. And I think we might have waited about 30, 40 minutes, and they came out there and picked the dog up. Last year I was out hunting dove down by the river here in Las Cruces. And I was just out there standing around. All of a sudden, this great bird dog runs up the road. And this is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, behind me, there are these big pecan orchards full of pecans. And in front of me is just the river, and, you know, the river, shrubs, a dirt road, nothing out there. And the dog just came up and just started, you know, hanging around. So I couldn't, the dog didn't have, I think the dog had tags, the number didn't work. So we ended up bringing the dog home. It was a beautiful dog, well-trained, brought him home. I have a picture, I should have shown him to you. And we knew we had to call the people who had the tag. So the animal rescue people came and got him too. We were going to adopt that dog. He was so beautiful and so friendly, but the people did come and get him that night. So we had to say goodbye again.
Yeah, you know, I think it takes a special person to be able to do that. Just like people foster babies or foster children. You know, it's like letting them go. That's a greater act of love in a way. You know, so I'm just saying it's so different how our needs are and what we put onto an animal. So it was great. It was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandy.
We were privileged to have 2 Labrador retrievers for almost 20 years, mother and daughter. And the song made me think of them. They got older and older and more fragile in health. But I thought it was a privilege to take care of them and make their latter days as good as we could. And I still miss them.
Yeah, I think it is hard to say goodbye to animals who are old or feeble or who have had illnesses. And I've learned about dogs having specific breeds, having specific illnesses that are kind of, I guess, akin to the dog. So for the example, I mentioned a Dalmatian that I got. The Dalmatian had bladder stones, which I learned are something inherent to Dalmatians. And even if you have the stones removed, they'll come back. So the dog couldn't pass water, and that was one dog that I had to have put down. So I understand. It was hard. It was hard to see him go, because he was a beautiful dog. He was well trained, and I love that dog. That dog. I worked for the railroad. That's why I had to leave town in that story. I worked for the railroad, and when I had that Dalmatian, I was still working for the railroad. So when I left town, one of my good friends kept the dog for me. And when we got back, my friend said, "Your dog attacked my tree. You bit my tree," right? And I apologized for the dog attacking the tree. A year later, that tree had grown exponentially compared to the one that he had bought just like it that didn't get attacked. So the good thing came out of the dog attack on the tree.
Yeah, we were fortunate that they each lived to be over 16.
A long time.
And they didn't have any major health problems. They just got old.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a privilege to care for them.
Yep.
I had one of our family dogs pass away a week after my mother passed away earlier this year. And it was almost harder grieving for the dog, but I think it was because she helped me get all that grieving out for my mother. But we still have two, and they're both rescues. And one is a little three-legged rescue, and one was these people moved out of their house and left her there outside with no water, no food, and a metal wire wrapped around her neck to keep her there. She would have just died out there. And my son was doing maintenance on the house after the people moved out, and so we just adopted her. But yeah, we wouldn't have any except for rescues, because they really need the love.
They do.
And they really give it back to us too.
They do. They do. The Obamas were a good model for that. I think now President Biden also, they brought in the dogs that were rescued to be the White House dogs of honor, family dogs. Yep.
Who else? Mark, did you want to share?
Yeah, I about a month ago I took my dog in to get his regular vaccination. You know, as the regular vaccination, and over the next week he reacted poorly to it, and it sent his immune system into overdrive, and it wiped out all the good stuff he had going in his body. So he was not eating. He was doing very poorly. His life was a bit threatened there. So when I took him to the vet, they put him on steroids, heavy-duty steroids. And, putting him on heavy-duty steroids gets they got to pee a whole lot. And so I didn't want to leave him in the house and pee all over the house. I had to put him outside. And I couldn't just put him outside, so I've spent the last couple weeks in the backyard myself at night, just because I didn't want to leave him out there by himself. But it's been nice, actually. It's been a different experience, and she's getting much better, and she'll be back in soon. Silly little story.
Wow.
One thing I didn't say is that a lot of people in Las Cruces know in the church that I'm actually allergic to animals, dogs and cats. And funny thing, when I was in search before I came to Las Cruces, I was at another congregation for a weekend doing the interviews and meeting the search committee. And I had told them, I said, I can't be in a person's house that has dogs because it'll cause my allergies. So they made sure that we didn't have any dogs around. So we met in this, I think it was a Episcopal church or Lutheran church office instead. And we were in there meeting and talking and so forth. And all of a sudden I started coughing and sneezing and getting short of breath. And one of the church committee members was a physician, so she had some medicine. Changed rooms. Turned out just before we got there, someone had been in the room with the dog. And that was what had caused the reaction. So I understand Mark saying you got to make adjustments. See another hand up.
Yeah, Andy.
Yeah, I have an interesting story about how we got one of our dogs. This was in Alaska. A friend of ours kept seeing this dog come to her house. He'd been mistreated, not fed, and he would get out of his collar and come to her house, and she'd take him back home, and then they mistreat him again. This went on several times. And finally, she went over and actually stole the dog. She left his collar there just as if he'd escaped and brought him home. And she was a hair stylist. And so no one would recognize this dog. He was a black dog. She dyed him red so that no one could identify this dog. And then he went to a kennel where I knew the person who took care of the dogs, and we adopted him. But one of the reasons I really liked him, he had this unusual color. By then some of the dye had faded out. He had this black reddish color I had never seen in a dog. He was just amazing, you know. And we lived in a small town, and I didn't know this story. I didn't know that he'd been stolen. I just adopted him. But after I found out the story, I was always afraid somebody would recognize him and say, hey, that's my dog. But nobody ever did. But I think it's just really cool that the lengths people would go to save a dog when they know he's being mistreated was really cool. Yeah. And he was a great dog. His name was Marley. So
Awesome.
Thank you, Andy. All right. Does anyone else have a question or comment? And I'm going to mute everyone. Everyone. Do you hear, the sound is going screwy. I don't know if anyone else can hear that or if it's just me. I hope it's just me. All right. Anybody else have any questions or comments? I'm going to read some comments from the chat before we close. Aubrey has said, I'm going to read some comments from the chat before we close. Has said,
It sounds like Jim here.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we're here.
Yes.
Actually, this is Patricia. I'm on my husband's laptop. Okay. Are you? Am I coming? Yes. Sorry, we're out about 20 miles from Silver, so the audio doesn't always come through. But I have a funny story about my last rescue. We have 4 special needs pups. And the last rescue we got was we had to drive to Tucson to get him. It was the weekend, and they had moved him from the shelter to a foster home. So when I picked him up at the foster home, I asked if they would send his records to my vet here in Silver. So when I brought him home a couple of days later, I took him to the vet so that they could check him. And I said, by the way, did the rescue in Tucson fax his records over? And the receptionist looked at me and pulled the bottom drawer out of her desk. And she said, yes, I had to fill the fax machine 3 times. So his medical records were about 4.5 inches thick. but they're all special needs and they're all loved.
All right. Thank you. Now, can everyone hear me? My sound went out there for a minute. Can you hear me? Okay. Are there any other questions or comments before we continue on? Speak now. Wave your hands like a wild person so I can see you.
Yeah.
All right. I don't see anyone. Oh,
Jeff.
Aubrey.
Just as a comment, I hope that we can do this again because it's nice to meet other people from other groups, and sometimes Zoom is the only way to do it. So even though I hope that the pandemic is ending and we're all going to go back to being sociable, but again, isolated from other communities, I hope we can do these again with Las Cruces, maybe with other groups too. It's nice to meet other people. You know, I mean,
I believe we're planning on continuing our Zoom even when we start services live again.
I'm not sure if we're going to do it in Silver City or not. I mean, I'm here in Seattle, and this is the only community I have right now. But anyway, I hope that's the case because it's really neat that it brings people together like this. It's really kind of cool. Thank you so much.
Well, we're open to it, and I've said to Ron that Silver City's welcome to join us anytime. And if we want to do a more intentional service together, surely our team of service associates and I will happily put it together and work with Silver to do it. So thanks for the invitation, Aubrey.
Thank you. And Carol, did you have something?
Yes, I was just, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. I just wanted to say thank you. And I appreciate the fact that, you know, the Silver City people have been chatty Cathys and the Las Cruces people have been quiet, but we know that you guys are just as interesting and fun, and we hope to get to know you better. Thank you. And thank you, XK.
Thank you, Carol. Andy, were you done or? Sorry, XK, go ahead.
I'm done. I was saying thank you to Carol and to everyone else.
All right, and Andy, your hand is still up. Did you have anything else, or did you just not take it? Okay, just checking. All right, anybody else have anything? Okay, I am going to, let me read a couple of things from the chat. Aubrey said, forgot to mention that this is Pride Month. Happy Pride, everyone. This is when we celebrate diversity and being ourselves. And by the way, Jennifer Finney Boylan is a relatively well-known author, and she's openly transgender too. So that's from the comments. And then I'm going to extinguish the chalice with a quote from All I Need to Know About Life I Learned from My Dog. Never pass up the opportunity to go for a joyride together. Allow the experience of fresh air and the wind in your face to be pure ecstasy. When loved ones come home, always run to greet them. When you want treats, practice obedience. Let others know when they've invaded your territory. Take naps together and stretch before rising. Run, romp, and play daily. Be loyal. If what you want lies buried, dig until you find it. When someone is having a bad day, be silent, sit close by, and nuzzle them gently. Thrive on the attention and let people touch you. Avoid biting when a simple growl will do. When you're happy, dance around and wag your entire body. No matter how often you're scolded, don't buy into the guilt thing and pout. Run right back and make friends. Delight in the simple joy of a long walk together. Love each other unconditionally. And now I want to again welcome our friend Mark to play another song, Little Boys Grow and Dogs Get Old by Luke Bryan. And here is Mark.
Hi. That was the black lab Daddy brought home. He said, son, he's yours from now on. Bandit looked at me and he cocked his head. Slept at night on the foot of my bed. All that year I can see him still chasing after me, nipping at my heels. Down to the bus stop, my new best friend, still waiting right there when I get home again. And I thought that we would be together, go on and on just like that forever. But I was young back then, I guess I just didn't know. Little boys grow up and dogs get old. He was my sidekick through thick and thin. He'd bark at my fish when I'd reel them in. Summers came and went, and we grew old like we. I don't know if I raised him or he raised me. And I thought we would be together, go on and on just like that forever. But I was young back then. How was I supposed to know? Little boys grow up and dogs get old. He was 14 when I left for Tennessee. He came down the front porch steps a little slow. I got down and hugged his neck, said, "You take care of Mom and Dad till I get home. And be a good boy. You be a good boy." And I thought we would be together, go on just like that forever. But I was young back then. God, I just didn't know. Little boys grow up and dogs get old.
That was great. Thank you.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Okay, I will send out the recording of today's program as soon as it's ready, and I'll make sure that you all in Las Cruces get the link as well, so you can send that out to everyone that missed it. Thank you all so very much for being here. Mark, that music was beautiful. Kalani, awesome, beautiful program. I especially really loved your wife's message about how we could love each other like we love our pets. That was
I'll pass it
beautiful.
on to her. I enjoyed it.
Thank you everyone so much for being here, and I will see you again next time. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I did my best.
It was great. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.